Chapter 4. Consequences. Riddle, whatever happens now, just go along with it, okay? Riddle went back to his little hospital cot contemplating the meaning of your words. And once you descended down from the balcony, that was the end of it. Sort of. A handful of other students had witnessed bits and pieces of the debacle. Word was bound to get out sooner or later. Rumors were starting to spread like wildfire already amongst the few students floating around campus. So you had to get ahead of it. You would take the hit, you decided. Riddle would come to no shame when the spectacle reached the public's ears. It would be you who faced the scathing rejection instead. Azul gladly saw to that. Get on with it, then. You heaved a sigh as you sat on the floor of the castle's common room, squared off with your rival. The tall male lifted an inquisitive eyebrow at you before opening up Magicam on his phone and dialing a number. After ringing 3 times, a voice on the other line answered. Hello? Trey! I have to tell you something! You had to give mad props to Azul. His acting was remarkably natural. Can you come back from break a day early? Why? What happened? Yes, the capricious princess of Savannah drugged poor Riddle in an attempt to steal his affections. What a tasty piece of gossip that would be for the student body to gnaw on. Because of your actions, you were going to be in trouble regardless. What would have been the point of exposing the truth of his intentions and making him suffer along with you? In hindsight, you were glad you had texted Trey and the others about Riddle the day before, as it tracked perfectly with Azul's fictitious tale. Of course! I'll see what I can do, was the last thing Trey said before your classmate hung up the phone. Then it was quiet for a long moment. Was that a look of respect you just got from Azul? It was hard to be sure. Nevertheless, the final day of break came and went, and you found yourself sitting in class once more, but this time surrounded by whispers. Riddle would be discreet about things, you had no doubt, but there was no way the school nurse would fail to report such a dangerous misdeed to the head mage. It was really only a matter of time before. Traveler King Scholar, please report to Head Mage Crowley's office immediately. The campus loudspeaker echoed boisterously across the grounds, and you felt your gut churn. As you took the short walk to the front of the classroom, which somehow felt impossibly longer with every eye fixed on you, you heard Azul call out, "Time to face the music, Juliet!" You were nervous, yes, but you had prepared for this. Your gaze rose to meet Riddle's, who, if his expression were any indication, was more fearful of this upcoming encounter than you were. I think the mirror sorted her wrong. She should have been in Pomfiore since she likes to poison people so much. Another student mumbled with deliberate volume before the door clacked shut behind you. Riddle chewed his bottom lip as he watched you pass the statues on the lawn. He truly hoped you could wiggle your way out of this, be it by your family making a generous donation to the school, or just being charming enough on your own to coax Crowley's good graces. Class seemed to drag on for him, and he couldn't help but feel like he was the one about to be put on trial instead of you, probably because he knew what had to come next. He began tapping his pen impatiently, casting rapid glances out the window every moment or so. At last he saw you crossing the courtyard, and exited the room like a bat out of hell the instant the bell rang. "Traveler!" Riddle called out to you, catching your wrist. You turned to him, eyes puffy and red, and the sight stole the breath from his lungs. What happened?" He leaned in close, gray-blue orbs filled with concern. "Please tell me he didn't expel you." "No." You shook your head and wiped your wet cheeks with your sleeve. "I sold him a bill of goods and got off with a lot of community service." Riddle heaved an audible sigh of relief. "That, and I can't participate in any school events for the rest of the year." "But the spell drive tournament. How's your dorm going to—" "Oh, Leona's gonna kill me for sure." You smirked wistfully. Riddle made a sympathetic face, but he knew the punishment was not unfair. all things considered. It was now that students started flocking nearby, pouring out of their classrooms. You eyed them warily as they began catching sight of the two of you, before addressing Riddle again in hushed tones. "So do you remember the story Trey said to you?" The redhead's stomach sank at your question, only now realizing the part he had to play. "Is this really the only way?" "It's fine, Riddle. I made my bed, and now I have to lie in it. I'm not afraid to face the consequences." A few groups of students stopped within earshot of you, and their whispers crescendoed like an approaching sea wave. Still the young man before you said nothing. "It's time, Riddle. They're watching us." The redhead clenched his teeth. He knew intent was important in a case like this. If Crowley knew you had so carelessly disregarded his safety for the sake of research and spite alone, you would undergo a trial by fire. But a sweet girl so in love she lost her senses? That was much more easily forgiven, and even inspired empathy in others. Because who hadn't experienced unrequited love at least once in their life? He knew that's why you chose this story, to spare his feelings in your own hide. But did you really expect him to do this? He knew a damaged reputation was preferable to expulsion. But would you be able to handle the cost? Wouldn't it be better if he could bear even some of it with you? "The show must go on," he heard you utter quietly, and he knew he was out of time. He glanced up, seeing bodies crowding the windows and gathering on the balcony, all looking down at the two of you. Regretfully, he took a deep breath, assuming his stage voice. "What you did to me was unacceptable!" He took a dramatic step backwards, casting your wrist from his hand. "Underhanded!" "Riddle, please!" You begged tearfully, soft ears drooping, and Riddle almost faltered. Your acting was so convincing his body froze for an instant. He wanted to comfort you so badly, but still he pressed on, planting a hand on his chest in an assertive sort of way. "Even as a gentleman, I cannot overlook your misconduct and your flagrant disregard for school rules. And so, I cannot accept your love. It's over between us. Do not seek my companionship again." He knew his performance was a little stiff, but it would do. However, when he watched you run away in tears, everything seemed far too surreal. Despite the argument being a farce, somehow he felt as though something valuable had truly been lost today. And though it had been what you asked for, tarnishing the name of a princess for his own sake still left Riddle feeling slimy and unchivalrous. "Little harsh, don't you think?" one student muttered nearby. "Nah, she totally deserved it. Who else do you know that's psycho enough to drug their own classmate?" Riddle's lips curled at the reply. It sickened him how quick they were to tear you apart. "Well, she's a Savannah Claw. That's probably normal for them. All those beast men are savages." And that was when Riddle snapped. He could subdue his outrage for the usual gossips, but he couldn't tolerate the shameless prejudice against your race, let alone the disgrace cast upon your royal appellation. "Don't you all have studying to do?" He turned on them with such breakneck speed that one of the three almost lost his balance. At least Riddle didn't have to fake the emotional charge in his voice right now, a fact he would have been grateful for were he not still reeling from this fiasco. He stormed back into the castle, as he was not certain he could keep up with this charade much longer. Riddle realized very quickly that he needed to fetch your books from the classroom before anyone else could vandalize them. Oddly enough, when he arrived at the door, the one who handed him your effects was Azul. "I assume you're back for these?" "Yes, thank you." He took the possessions in hand. "I figured I'd come get them before someone of lesser integrity did." Azul nodded, then donned a sickening smile. "We all have our weaknesses, don't we?" Riddle wasn't sure what he meant by that, but it made him feel uneasy nonetheless. Finally, you made it back to your dorm, and flopped onto the bed in a heap. You were dreading the atom bomb of chaos that would soon detonate when your family caught wind of what you had done. But for the present time, you could rest easy. You had succeeded. You somehow managed to avoid expulsion by bawling and telling the head mage that you simply had a moment of weakness, that you loved Riddle so much you couldn't bear the thought of his rejection. Crowley bought it, took pity on you, and put you to work. Thank the stars for his self-proclaimed generosity. You knew your travail wasn't done, though. Not by a long shot. You had to play the part, shooting Riddle's sad, longing glances in the presence of others for a month or so. And he knew he had no choice but to pointedly ignore you. He was a forgiving person, but he was also a man of principle. He couldn't go back on his word after a performance like that. This double life inadvertently caused a rift between you, as you could only really be friends in secret. You only met once a month for sure, the 28th calendar day. On that date, the anniversary of the day you drugged him, you'd make Riddle a tart, and have tea with him at some hidden location. Riddle always looked forward to Tart Day, for more than just the sweets, though he insisted it was a pointless endeavor. He had already forgiven you, and demanded to know how long you would go on punishing yourself, to which you replied, "Until I stop feeling bad about it, or until graduation, whichever comes first." And so, your reputation was thoroughly dragged through the mud. It's not as if you cared that much, in all honesty. Due to a lethal combination of your competitive nature, intimidating title, and utter distaste for sugarcoating things, you already didn't have a ton of friends to begin with. Not to mention, having too much of a social life would run the risk of you losing your academic edge on Azul, and you couldn't have that. So, with that firm and optimistic mindset set in stone, you were easily able to face the brunt of the ridicule for quite some time. However, it wasn't until mid-spring that you found out just how notorious your name had become. The annual Spring Sports Festival arrived, and though your brother Leona was aggravated beyond words that you couldn't participate, you could still support your dorm in other ways. You had toiled for weeks at preparing a fundraiser, complete with a generous assortment of ornate sweets. But when word had gotten out that you were involved in the baking, not a single student came to your booth. Not one. It was a blow you had no way to plan for, and it struck you deeper than you could have anticipated. As expected, it was Riddle who noticed your absence from the crowd, and eventually found you in tears behind the stadium stands. He had never seen you cry before, aside from the crocodile tears you shed from his false rejection of you. It set something ablaze in him. But he couldn't very well hex everyone in the stadium just for being cruel to you. "I thought things were blowing over," you sobbed. I thought people trusted me again." A steady hand found your shoulder, and Riddle's handkerchief was extended in your direction. "Dry your eyes," he commanded gently. "Don't let them see you like this." After giving you a moment to restore your composure, he instructed you to return to your station, insisting he'd take care of the rest. You had no idea what he intended to do, but before you had enough time to fret over the matter, a modest throng of students in white and red began lining up to buy your goods. Before long, that small company multiplied into a full-on congregation, and you barely had enough food prepared to satisfy them all. You later found out through hearsay that Riddle had ordered every student in his dorm to buy something from your stand, or risk being collared for the night. And it was through this unabashed act that you began to view him in a new light. What the student body would assume about his relationship with you didn't matter to him, nor did the potential teasing that he might endure for it. What mattered to him was being a gentleman, using his power to do good. And it was now you could finally see Riddle for what he was, and not just the stuck-up little doctor's son from the Queendom of Roses. He was someone you could rely on. Someone important to you. Throughout the summer break, you caught yourself smiling every time you passed a rose. You'd even planted some on your bedroom windowsill, despite knowing they probably wouldn't survive the hot climate. They served as a constant reminder of your crimson prince, sweeping in to save you. He truly was your hero that day. An over-the-top and embarrassing one, but a hero all the same. But with each new school year brings fresh challenges, one of which you would not overcome. You hadn't forgotten. You hadn't forgotten any of it. The pain you brought on Riddle and yourself, the punishment and hours of Crowley's mundane labor that followed, the detriment to your very name. Your classmate had grown to care for you, and you had been wicked to him. So why then? Why could you not resist tempting the same fate? Why were you igniting this dance with another? These were the questions racing through your mind when you counted backwards on the tray. 2 cups back from the front, 1 inside from the far left. You pulled out the cup and smiled, handing it to the new object of your affections. His lavender hair shone brightly in the sun, with fractals of periwinkle and safflower yellow undertones reflecting when the light struck it just right. Even with a layer of sweat from exertion, he still looked more put together than you on a good day. He was nothing if not utterly breathtaking. Here you go. Epel.
To be continued.